Okay, so welcome to the webinar series IBM Connect sessions at Panagenda. Welcome to TDI Solutions Best Practice with IBM Connections deployments. I'm some technical issues. So, I'm Christoph Stoettner. I'm working as a senior consultant at Panagenda. I work with Nodes Domino since about 16 or 17 years. Started with Connections 2009 with 2.5 or 2.0, not sure about it. I have several years of experience in migrating, installing connections, some administrations, performance analyzing, or troubleshooting. So I joined Panagenda in 2015 and do focusing on deployment and optimizing connections and do some monitoring with IBM Connections now. I'm a husband, father of 2 little girls. I come from Bavaria, been IBM champion since 2013, and I'm also known as Schnöps. So maybe you see my blog or something else. Let's start with stuff. Some general informations. I will show you some values in the configuration files, and the default values are in brackets with bold font settings. I will show you some monospaced fonts for folders, and when I talk about connections root, maybe for example, I talk about opt IBM connections on a Linux or Unix environment, and about maybe D IBM connections on a Windows machine. So normally I install TDI to opt IBM TDI or D IBM TDI, so my TDI solutions directory will be beneath TDI, so TDI, tdisol is normally my first TDI solution directory. And we will use TDI 711, but I will show later about it. For what can you use TDI or TDI solution, which is provided by IBM with your IBM Connections environment? It's mainly used for reading your LDAP using a search base and a search filter, and then create your user profiles, internals, externals, within your profile database, your people database within Connections. It do also update user profiles, and it will delete or inactivate user profiles depending on your configuration. So what can we read? We can read every LDAP version 3. So it's Domino, Microsoft Active Directory, Novel, eDirectory, some Oracle stuff, or Sun. I think the most stuff we find at customer sites is Domino and Active Directory. Some have Sun, Java, LDAP, or Novell. And TDI solution will provide you through profile TDI XML, that's the assembly line within TDI, and writes to your database, which can be DB2, Microsoft SQL, or Oracle. That's the main functionality we will have through TDI solutions within Connections. So, which version should you install? Installing and updating TDI, please read the requirement document before you start your deployment. There is normally mentioned the version and the Fixpack you need to install. So for Connections 5.0 it's 711 and Fixpack 3. So please use Fixpack 3 or we'll get some errors during starting TDI. Within Connections 5.5 it was a little bit weird, because in the first version of the requirement document it did not work. So they updated the document, and the XML files within TDI solution show that they are created by 711. So please use 711 with Connections 5.5.2. And now I think since end of January the right version 711 is shown in the requirement document, and Fixpack 3 is needed too. or you can use Fixpack 4 or 5. Normally newer Fixpacks will do the same stuff. I had some issues with Fixpack 4, so I normally use 3 or 5 at my deployments, but I'm not sure what the real matter was with 4. How you can install TDI Fixpack? Just shut down TDI, download and extract the Fixpack 3 package at Passport Advantage or the IBM software catalog. Please read the provided HTML file with the README. There is mentioned that you have to copy the update installer jar from the Fixpack directory to TDI maintenance. When you do not copy the update installer jar, you will not be able to roll back your update. So maybe you have to reinstall completely. So please change update installer jar and read the README carefully. Then on Windows, just start the apply updates batch file, or on Linux, start the apply updates shell script with -update and the zip file with the provided Fixpack. It will run several minutes. Applied the right way, so just start apply updates again with -query_rec. That's all. You will get a list of all components of TDI with the updated version numbers with Fixpack 3 in this case. IBM provides us a TDI solution package with the assembly lines to create and update the Connections Profiles, and there are no separate update packages available for Connections 5 or 5.5 for this TDI solution package. It's deployed now within Connections root, tdisol, and there is a zip or a tar file, and I think there's an additional one for iSeries 2. I do not like to use the TDI population directory from the wizard, because the Connections wizard from 5.0 is, I think, 1.5 years old. There were no updates within the wizard. They have different formatting, so the property files are harder to read, and it was never updated. So please use the zip file, extract it to your TDI solutions folder, and change the values there. It's easier. In former versions like Connections 3 or 4 or 4.5, IBM provides a separate TDI solutions update files. You can download them from Fix Central and deploy them, but no special update files are available for 5 or 5.5. So be aware of this, please. So some best practice. I wouldn't copy any property directly from the wizard folder or from your old TDI solutions directory, because sometimes there are new properties, sometimes there are changes within the property files or within the assembly lines. You will not see them. So it's much better to do them step by step with a tool where you can see the differences between the old and the new version. So please use diff on Linux or Notepad++ with a compare plugin or something else where you can see which changes were made by IBM. And then you can be sure that your TDI solutions directory will work. I started to use a version control system like Git or SVN. That saves me some time because I can see which changes were made. I can make a backup copy at customer sites, and I know if something is changed there when I'm not there. So I would recommend that you use something equal to. So just like Git, it's perfect to store some text files and see a history about the changes. So what will TDI do within your TDI solutions directory? You will get a you have a profiles TDI property file. There are the main configuration parameter set. You have a mapdb repos from source property file. That's the file where the mapping from LDAP attribute to a database field is stored. These property files are used by the TDI engine. The profiles connector within the assembly line reads these values and create or update your user profiles within the people database. I think that your LDAP is searched by search filter, and you can define a search base, so you can decide which users will get a profile on connections. And you should know that only users with a valid active profile within the people database is able to log into connections and to work with it. All others will get an error message. So which files we can find in TDI solution? The mapping file, I already mentioned it. It's a mapping from LDAP attribute to database. We have a DB repos to source property file. You only need it when you want to update LDAP attributes with values from your database. So you can let your users update their profiles within connections and then sync special fields back to your LDAP. It's possible, but I never seen it in the wild, so we tested it, but I never used it anywhere to update LDAP, because I need a special user who can write to the LDAP server. On Domino you get problems when you use multiple address books, because you can't say in which address book the value is stored. It always writes to the names. So never used it, but it's there. Then we have a solution property file. That's for global TDI properties. There is definition for Derby database. That's a database used within TDI. There you can define key files. We'll see later in the session, and so on. But that's mostly all there. So in profiles TDI, that's the properties for your assembly line. So what's your database server? How is the search base? How is the LDAP server name? Which user can connect to the LDAP, and so on. And a special file is the validate field property file. There is a defined the maximum and minimum length of values which are read from LDAP and written to the database. So when you have maybe a country field, in Domino you can store everything within country what you want. So you can write there Germany, Deutschland, DE, or only D, or something else, or for the United States you can write down US, USA, or United States. But connections, or TDI in this case, will only read values with 2 characters, because we have a mapping later which will show you the complete written country field name or country name, and so we need to have a value with maximum 2 characters. And when there is a value with more than 2 characters, the profile will not be created. So you will get an error when you want to add a user with a country field in Domino with maybe Germany. So be aware of this, or do not sync country. That's the most important with the validate field. So how we can map the attributes. I already told you it's stored in the mapdb repos from source property file. You can write down the LDAP attribute and the peopledb field. When you set a value equal null, the attribute is not set within the database. When you set a value equals an attribute name, it just stores the value of the LDAP attribute within the database. And when you use in curly brackets a function name, you can use JavaScript to change some things which you can get from the LDAP and write something else to the database. I use this maybe in or for example within Active Directory, where the description field is often used as a common name field, and Microsoft had made some changes in the last years where the full name is stored as last name, comma, and given name. And it's not looking really good in Connections, so I started to use a function here. I read the given name, I read the last name, and I combine them with a space. So I have a full name with given name, last name, and it's better readable within Connections. So that's an example for using a JavaScript within MapDB repos properties. Be careful with some of the fields, because most of your profile fields can be changed within Connections. So when you go to edit profile, your users can change maybe their description, their about field, or a telephone number. And when you map these fields, will start, the value of the user is overwritten. So it's not funny to write maybe 100 lines within description and then TDI starts and throw it away and write down something from the LDAP. So when you want to use description within MapDB repos from source or experience, please remove the editable flag from the profiles field. So your users can change them, and they won't get angry when you run TDI, just for best practice. Very important within the profile or attribute mapping is UID and GUID. The UID is normally short name within Domino or same account name within Active Directory, and the GUID is calculated from the person document ID within Domino or from SSID within Active Directory. And I found several issues when you do not use really UID or GUID with these functions within the mapping property file. So when I change UID to something else than short name, I got problems and I want to delete users with 4.0 and I think 4.5. When I change something within GUID, it will work mostly, but you will get problems when you use groups within communities. So your groups are not recognized, or your users are not recognized when they are only enabled for a community within through a group. So please use GUID and UID here, or open a PMR with IBM and let them know that you want to store something else here. The MapDB repos 2 source, I already said, it's for write-back changes to the LDAP. You can only write fields back which are not mapped in the DB repos from source file. So no circle things can happen. So you can only write attributes back which are not read from the LDAP in the MapDB repos from source file. On Domino, I don't use this, or normally don't use this, because I can't define which database is updated, so I often use a directory assistance file to add some special connections users, and latest there I will get problems when I want to write back to the LDAP. And one of the most important fields within profile TDI XML is the sync updates hash field. This property is used to calculate a hash on the database and your LDAP, and then the matching hashes will create users or update users. I will show a little bit later, so please be aware it's really important to use the right value here. The default is UID. As we already seen, UID is normally mapped to short name, and what could happen? So short name is always changed on a domino when you change the name of your user. So when he married or changed his name in another way, don't know why. So it can happen that the short name will change. So what can happen? Your user will get deactivated and activated again with a new short name. And all his content is mapped to the old account, and you have to do something special to map this to the user again. So it's not really good to use UID here. I wouldn't use email too, but I show later on the next or 2 slides later. Just as an example, so when I use sync updates hash field equals UID, and the user is renamed, the domino short name is multi-value, so you will have 2 short names with the old and the new name in it. With Microsoft Active Directory, normally a change of the SAM account name is not name dependent, so wouldn't happen there. But when you change the SAM account name within Active Directory, your user will get deactivated and get a new profile at the second run of TDI. What can happen when a user retires? Depending on my settings in my property file, the user will get deleted or inactivated. So that's fine. When the user hires again and he got inactivated and he gets the same short name, your connections user will be reactivated. He will have the same profile picture, his information he put into connections, and so on. But what can happen when another user get the short name of this user? So it can happen that maybe your CIO retires. He has a common name like John Doe. His short name was Doe, and now after 4 weeks, 4 months, a new trainee will start with the same name. So he will get the same short name, and he will get the data from your old user account, the CIO user account. But normally CIOs are stored in all communities. They have hidden ones. They have communities with HR data, and I think that a trainee should have access to these. So be aware when you reuse short names. It can happen that a user gets data from a former one. When I set this to the hash field to email, and he changed the name, the user gets inactivated, and on the next run he will get a new profile. So I need to remap his old content. When the user retires, he gets inactivated, that's fine. When he hires again and the email address is unique and he gets it again, the user is just reactivated and he gets his old content. But the same issue then with UID, when another user gets the same mail address, and just recognize you have lots of users with common name and mail addresses are reused. The same thing will happen like in with UID. The new user will get the data from the old user account. So I won't use email and I won't use UID for the hash field. I normally like the GUID. Because the GUID is calculated from SSID within Active Directory or from the document ID within the Domino. So when a user retires, he gets inactivated or deleted, and within Domino normally his person document is deleted. When the user hires again, the new registered user has a new GUID. That's normal. Within Active Directory, I often see at customers that they only deactivate users, and then they only have to reactivate it. Then nothing special must be done. Within Domino LDAP, your user will get a new profile, and you maybe get a duplicate login data error within TDI, and no new profile will be created. But then you can use populate from the end file, put the DN of the user in the collect DNS file, run populate, and this will update GUID value within the database. That's the easiest step here. I like the GUID file, GUID value within sync updates hash field. But you must be sure that your Domino administrators are aware of this, because I often see at customers that Domino administrator use cut and paste of person documents when they have issues with a person. Because then when you do a cut and paste within your Domino directory, all fields are recalculated through the paste. But when you paste a document into the Domino directory, it will get a new document ID. So my GUID value in connections will change. So you should be sure that your Domino administrators do not use cut and paste when you use GUID as a hash field. But you can do as a workaround the collect DNS and populate from the N file too. So, next important thing within TDI solutions is the usage of country and work location. I often see when I do reviews at customers that they start customizing TDI and write country or work location into extension fields within connections. When you customize connections in this way, you need to update TDI, you need to update free market templates within connections, and mostly on each update which you do on your connection side, you have to redeploy these changes. So I don't like to make customizing within profiles or within TDI here. It's better to use the built-in stuff. So, but what I often see is, so you map your country value to country, and it writes maybe DE to my database, but it do not show up within my profile. What happens here? The interesting part on country, work location, and department is that there are special tables where the country is stored in the database. So there's a mapping between the 2-character ISO code to the country name. You can see it here in the middle. Each time when in my profile for country a DE is shown up, it will write Germany into my profile, or it will show Germany within my connections profile. What can happen? Normally, the country value for ISO code is in capitals, but we can see here the ISO code for country is only stored in small characters within the database, though there's no mapping because it's case sensitive and the country will not show up. So you have two possible ways here. You can add the ISO code in capitals, or you can change the value within the profiles database, maybe through a JavaScript function to small characters. There are many ways, but I show some steps later. So small character ISO code, so you need to have small characters within the employee table in your people database when you want to use the built-in one. Or, I don't know, okay. That's just a lookup. I will show how you can add special country values here too. What can happen? I often see that users are not imported to the profiles database because the country value has more than 3 characters. So a profile will not be created when the country value within the LDAP is longer than 3 characters. So maybe you have there Germany, Deutschland, Italy, or something else. It's more than 3 characters. You will get an error and the profile is not generated. The validate field just shows it must be a maximum of 3 characters. The funny thing is when we step one slide back, the country code is always stored as a 2-character value. So it's fine that I can write 3 in it, but it will only show when there are only 2 in. So when the country is not displayed, I already said it, the Domino LDAP uses a free text field for country. So a user or administrator can write everything he wants to this field. When he uses capitals, the lookup will not work. When he used the wrong abbreviation like USA, the lookup will not work. And when you put complete country names in, it will not work too. So you have, as a solution, you can write a JavaScript function and say, okay, always when USA is stored in my country field, please write US in small characters to the country table, or provide a list or something else. You can change the values in person documents through an agent or something else. You can add the ISO codes in capitals to ISO CSV file. That's the file which is used to build the country table within the profiles database. So that's the easiest way to add new countries, to add new mappings like USA is United States or something else. And as last possible way, but I don't like it, customize your profile details free marker template, the FTL, and remove the lookup to the table. So you can write, no, you can't write, because the validation property says a maximum of 3 characters. So you can it can show up, but then with an abbreviation. Same way in Worklocation. You can store a short name for your work location, like WM for Westford, Massachusetts, like in this example. You map WM to work location code. You copy the worklog sample CSV from the samples folder within your TDI solutions directory, rename it to worklog CSV, map the values used within your LDAP to the city address or the street address. The format is work location code, street 1, street 2, city, state, and postal code. When you use this as an example, and after this run the fill worklog batch file or shell script, this will update the work location table within the profile database and provide the postal address within your profile. Same thing with department, organization, and employee type. There are samples within your TDI solutions directory. You can use the provided batch files to fill them. You can run them several times. So every time when the CSV file changes, you can run the batch file, and this will update the tables. And as a best practice, I would use TDI to create the CSV files. So I would read my LDAP, check which maybe work locations or organizations are stored in the LDAP attribute, and put them in the CSV file. That's all. And I did this at several customers as a source for department or organization. We used SAP, other LDAPs, other databases like SQL or something else. So we are really open here to create a valid profile, and I think the more detailed connections profile is, the more advantages your users will have. So provide as many information as you can. So here's an example. The default one on the left, it's just the name, a telephone number, and my mail address, and maybe the local time. Or is it better to have a more detailed one with title, with company, postal address, and so on? So I think it's your users will have more value when it's more detailed. So which important properties do we have? As we have some more important properties here. So when you copy or unzip the TDI solution directory, the first thing you should change is the TDI environment batch file. There is the TDI path stored, so There you say where the TDI binaries can be found within the batch files. When you unzip the TDI solutions directory, it can happen that the shell scripts are not executable. So you need to start a change mod within Linux and make them executable. Because often the packages are stored zipped. We have this with some installation files within Connections, and with a zip file you can store special executable parameters within Linux. So it's better to use tar here, but we need to open PMRs for IBM that they change this. So until we have tar, we need to do a change mod here. So within Profile TDI properties, the main configuration, already said, it's the LDAP connection parameter, it's the host name, the bind user, password of bind user, LDAP search, and LDAP base parameters. On the other side, important database parameters, JDBC connection string, and the database user with password. How can I test? There is a sync updates show summary only attribute within the Profile TDI property files. It's default set to false, so it will do what you want. But when you set it to true, TDI will do a dry run, so it will run through your LDAP, it hashes the values, it tries to update the database, but it will not write really to the database. So you can see what would happen after I change a value. And you get information in the end of the script like, I would delete 10,000 users, update 20,000, and create 3 new. I wouldn't run this after a change because 10,000 users deleted is maybe wrong. So I would have a look again on my properties and run the try only again. We already talked about the sync updates hash field. I would recommend that you use GUID, and the sync store source URLs is default true. So TDI writes the JDBC parameter and your search base to a column within the people database. It's just for information, but then when you use the sync source URL enforce, only values with the same source URL will be updated. We will need this later for external users or when you use multiple TDI solutions directories, because when we want to sync users from different LDAP sources, it would deactivate users without this enforce parameter. Then we have the URL override parameter. It's default false. I would turn it to true when you use the enforce one, because when you change something on the search or LDAP base, it can happen that the user will not update and will not be inactivated. Then we have a perform deletion or inactivate for sync value. It's default true. So it will delete or inactivate users when they are not in the LDAP anymore. And we have a decision what do we want. When a user is not in the LDAP anymore, we can inactivate him at the default, or we can delete the profile. What's the difference? With inactivate, we can still see the profile information of the user. So picture, old telephone number, which organization or department he was. When we use delete, we can only see the author name of a document, that it's written from Christoph Stoettner, but you can't click on the profile anymore. You just see I'm the author, but when I'm deleted, there are no more values available. So it's better to use inactivate. Then we talked about validate DB repos. It's for validation of parameters, so you have a minimum and maximum length. Some values have a minimum, most have only maximum length parameters. And most of these values are smaller than the maximum column definition within the database. Not sure why. There are some tech notes that special ones can be changed. I would be very carefully changing things within the validate property file, and I'm very careful when I never would change database column definition, because on the next update or the next migration it can happen that my database can't be migrated when the columns are too long. So what happened when we run the syncall.dns? That's the main batch file which creates and updates our user. It first hashes the database entries. So it runs through my employee table and create a hash on the GUID or UID depending on my configuration. Then it will hash my LDAP. Then it will compare the values. So it's just which hashes are available on the LDAP side, which were available on the database side, and which values do we have on both sides. So first of all, it will run a delete. It will delete or inactivate all connections user profiles which are not longer available in the LDAP. So and there is no hash matching, and the user will get inactivated. Then we get an add or update. So when there is a match between the hashes, the user will get an update. And when we have a new hash within the LDAP, it will create a new profile. I'm too slow. I think important and documented, but I think very new. I think it comes with 5.0. We often have the case that inactivated users store all profile informations the user made. So there is a work experience, history, a picture, a telephone number, and so on. We have some country laws which, like in Germany, which demand that we remove pictures after a user retires or he left the company. So we need to remove pictures, or we remove the complete profile. And so on customer sites, I often use this revoke user functionality. I inactivate my users for, let's say, 3 months, and after 3 months I want to completely delete them. You can use these 3 files within your, I think it's stored in the sample folder. Yeah, copy the samples, revoke start to TDI solution, open the revoke users property files. There is a value keep for days equals 21, so for 3 weeks. I normally change this to 90 or something like this. Then you can run revoke users validate. It's just to check if the environment was right configured. Then you can start revoke users summary. You will get a revoke and a revoke skip LD file, so you can check which users will get deleted and which inactive users will skip in the moment because they are not inactive for 90 days. And in the end, you run a revoke users revoke, and that's really delete the profile. So then you can be sure the picture is away and you're safe about law issues. When you only want to remove pictures or special values, you need to write your a separate TDI assembly line. It's not built in within Connections or TDI solutions in the moment. Let's talk about external users. It's new functionality since 5.0. You can have external users. External users only see special communities which they are members. They can share files and work with this community. That's all. All public content is not readable by external users. Normal users can read all public content. So how can I enable this? It's just a TDI solution copy. So I normally copy my already deployed TDI solution internal directory to a new one, like tdisol external. And there are three parameters. It's sync store source URL, like I told before, which have to be true. The URL enforce must be true, because when you don't set enforce to true, the external TDI solution sync all DNS script will deactivate your internal users, and in the end the source URL override parameter, I would add this to true too. And where we want to use TDI's solution for creating external users, we have two possible ways. We can activate external users based on an LDAP tree, or we can use LDAP attribute for them. So when we want to define external users in a different LDAP tree, maybe we need to add the new LDAP to our federated repository within WebSphere. We need to change source LDAP URL, search base, and search filter, and then we have to set the same values for source LDAP URL visitor confirm and search base search filter visitor confirm too. This shows TDI that these are external users. And within MapDB repos properties, we need to set the mode to func mode visitor branch. So on the next sync all DNS run within tdisol, it will mark our users of this LDAP tree as external. That's the easiest way when you want to use an LDAP tree. Or you use an LDAP attribute. You need to define an LDAP attribute which contains external. Please be aware, it must contain external, nothing else. You can't configure another parameter in the default. So use source LDAP URL visitor confirm like before, but with the values of your production LDAP, and then you can set the mode to the LDAP attribute where external is stored. So maybe connections, external users. But all values except of external are interpreted as internal. So you need to set it to external. I think that's easier to deploy because you mustn't change anything on your WebSphere. Just use any unused field and write external to it. On Domino, we often use here the level fields in the person document. A word on Connections 5.5. Connections 5.5 did some performance improvements within the TDI solutions. You can read it in documentation. It's really good documented. There is a new thing about timestamp tracking. So TDI will only update users which are not updated the last 2 or 3 days. So you can say, when I have a big environment with some thousand users, you can say, okay, I only want to update profiles all 3 or 4 days. So only fewer updates will happen in a day. And you can enable multiprocessing. It's a sync update size model. It will copy your TDI solutions directory several times and run it in a multi-threading way. Should run faster, but needs more resources. So I never tried it, but it's in documentation. I hope it worked. A word on customization. You can customize your TDI environment. You can customize your TDI solution directory. But please make a valid documentation about it. It's really hard to find changes within an assembly line. And I often see this as customer sites. Yeah, we changed something, but not sure what and where. That's really hard, because on each update from connections, you need to be sure that your changes are working again. So document it or do not customize it. I prefer to use separate assembly lines when I want to add stuff. I do not edit the IBM provided TDI solution directory. Don't like it. Yeah. Or as another way is when you need more detailed LDAP attributes, please sync the attributes to your production LDAP. So when you use Domino to create your connections profiles and you need maybe employee number or something else from your SAP or your Active Directory, write a TDI assembly line, synchronize the stuff from SAP or AD to Domino, and then use the default mapping from your TDI solutions directory. It's the easiest way, and you can be sure that on each update it will work. Yeah, that can happen. Need to troubleshoot something when TDI is not working. The main log file is IBM DI log within the logs directory, but there are some more, but I think the most important is the IBM DI. Be aware of this. When you start troubleshooting, it's a good starting point to read the employee files. They are new. I think they came with 4.0 or 4.5, and the TDI will write their possible errors. So we can see here employee adds, which contains the DN of all users which are added to the profiles. I see delete, all users which are deleted. I see the users with errors, which are skipped and which are updated. So it's good when a user calls you, I can't work with connections, I'm a new user, I'm here since 3 weeks but I have no profile. I would start with these files. When that's not enough, I would start debugging. There are 2 ways to enable debug. You can enable special debugs on within profiles TDI properties for managers, photos, pronouns, fill codes, update parameters to true. This will provide you some more information, but I like to change the global one in etc log4j properties. Just change the log4j root category equals info, default to debug, default. You will get a much more detailed IBM DI log with all SQL statements, with all LDAP attributes, all data of the users, and more detailed error messages. Then you should find the reason why a user is not synchronized. Yeah, I think that's the most important. When you want to use SSL for your LDAP connection, it's important to import the root certificate with the TDI, because in another case TDI wouldn't trust your SSL LDAP server. So you need to open solution properties, uncomment the trust store line, set it to key JKS. You need to protect it with a password, and you set a type like JKS. Then you can create the key file or the trust store with key tool. Key tool is provided by each Java JRE environment. Just do a key tool import and minus file the PM file of your SSL root certificate. You can get it through a browser, you can get it from the SSL administrator, and so on. When you import it to key tool, it will ask you if you want to trust it, and when you trust it, TDI will use an SSL connections to the LDAP server. And I think that's best practice too, because I don't like LDAP connections without SSL, because there are clear text, you can read everything. Okay, it's within your environment, but I would try to use SSL where I can. Normally we use syncall-DNS for synchronization of users and profiles, but you can separate it. And when you do troubleshooting, it's sometimes very good to start with collect DNS. This will collect all users from the LDAP and store it in the collect.dns file with the DN. So when a user is not synchronized, I run collect DNS and I check the collect.dns file if the user is in there. So I know, okay, my search and my search filter and my search space are okay. Then I run the populate from DN file. I can run this. It will always read the collect DNS file. I can run this over all users, or I can only store 1 or 2 in it. So when I only want to troubleshoot one user why his profile is not generated, I only let his name in the collect DNS file, then I run populate from the N file, and I can check the log what happens. And the best thing here, populate from the N file, do not read the hash field. So it always use the N value to match LDAP and database. So even when your GUID has changed, the user will get updated. So what happens when you use collect DNS? Collect DNS collects your user from source with search filter and search space for your LDAP. It creates the collect DNS file with all user DN, and populate from the N file will iterate over all DNs within collect DNS and write the changes to the database. Populate from the N file will not delete or inactivate any user. It just adds or updates. So it's a quite interesting tool within troubleshooting. Here you can see some links for FixCentral for your updates. There was an OpenMIC call last year, I think December, from IBM about Connections Profiles with TDI. It's a quite interesting call. I think it's a video, so you can watch it again. And there is a slide deck about it. They're talking much more detailed about customization, so it's interesting to see. And so I'm finished. The acknowledgement disclaimer and continue some trademarks. Thank you very much for attending. I'm not sure if I can open for questions. Let's try. No, I don't think so. If you have any questions, I'm available on Skype or through email or through our marketing team at Panagenda. Please drop me a mail, and thank you for attending. Bye-bye.